Hi everyone, it's Miss Hannah and I wanted to read you one of my favourite Christmas ballet stories, which is The Nutcracker. So find somewhere cosy to sit and I hope you enjoy the story. It was Christmas Eve and Clara's family were preparing for a party. Clara carefully added the final decoration to the Christmas tree. "That looks magical!" exclaimed her mother. Soon the room was abuzz with music and laughter. The last guest to arrive was an old man in a black cloak. The other children shrank away from him, but Clara and her brother Fritz ran forwards in delight. It was their godfather, the wonderful toy maker. "I have a surprise," he announced. To everyone's amazement, he brought in 2 life-size clockwork dolls. As he wound them up, they jerkily came to life. The pretty doll twirled gracefully in a pink dress, and the brightly painted harlequin dancer leaped and spun. When the dance was over, the old man beckoned to his godchildren. "And here are some presents just for you," he whispered. Fritz unwrapped a beautiful drum without a word of thanks. He was much more interested in Clara's wooden soldier. "It's a nutcracker," explained their godfather. "Watch this." He placed a nut inside the soldier's mouth and cracked it open. Clara took the nutcracker and held it close. "Thank you, godfather," she said. Fritz's face clouded with jealousy. "I want a turn," he said, snatching the nutcracker. He grabbed the biggest nut he could and tried to force it into the soldier's mouth. "No, Fritz, don't," cried Clara, but it was too late. The soldier broke in two, and Fritz ran off to hide. Clara picked up the pieces, her sad eyes meeting her godfather's. "Don't worry," he said, "I'll mend it." And with a mysterious wave of his handkerchief, the nutcracker was as good as new. Clara placed it gently below the tree and joined her friends in a dance. All too soon, the evening was over. After the last guests had left and the family had gone to bed, Clara tiptoed back downstairs in her nightgown. She picked up the nutcracker, cradling in her arms, and fell fast asleep. She was woken by the clock striking midnight. It was eerily dark, and the Christmas tree towered over her. It seemed to be growing taller and taller. A sudden scratch made Clara jump. Huge mice scampered out of the shadows, commanded by their wicked king. "Help!" Clara pleaded, then blinked in astonishment. Her nutcracker was coming to life. He shouted an order, and a line of tall soldiers came marching out from a wooden chest. "Into battle!" he commanded. A frantic clashing of swords followed. Soon, only the nutcracker and the mouse king were left. "Hand over the girl," ordered the mouse king. "Never," replied the nutcracker. But he was cornered with no escape. "I must save him," thought Clara. She tugged off one of her slippers and threw it at the mouse king. It sailed through the air and thump, hit him straight on the head. The mouse king slumped to the ground. When Clara looked back at the nutcracker, he had changed. He was no longer a soldier, but a handsome prince. "You saved my life," he said. "Thank you. Now let me take you on an adventure." With those words, the walls of the house faded away, and a snowy forest grew all around them. Wow! A flurry of snowflakes tumbled from the sky, swirling into dancing ice fairies. Clara gazed at them, spellbound, until the prince whisked her off into a world beyond the forest. "Welcome to my home," he announced, "the land of the sweets." Clara gasped. Absolutely everything looked good enough to eat. Mountains were topped with whipped cream. Marshmallow clouds floated in the sky. Lollipop trees lined a jelly bean path, and ahead of them stood a frosted pink castle with white chocolate turrets. As Clara and the prince approached, a beautiful lady in a glittering tutu appeared. "Clara," said the Nutcracker Prince, "I'd like you to meet the Sugar Plum Fairy." The fairy curtsied gracefully, and Clara copied her nervously. "What brings you here?" the fairy asked. When she heard of their battle with the Mouse King, she clapped her hands with glee. "This calls for some dancing," she declared, and she led them into the grand hall, where a long table was laden with mouth-watering treats. The lively music of trumpets and castanets announced the first dance, a dramatic Spanish fandango. The dancers were dressed in velvety dark brown and moved as if they were swirling through chocolate. Next, Arabian dancers in exotic silks swayed like rising steam from a coffee cup. A chorus of flutes announced a sprightly Chinese tea dance, followed by energetic high kicks from a troupe of Russian dancers. Clara found herself smiling and clapping, then swaying in time to a pretty waltz as ballerinas dressed as flowers. Finally, the prince took the Sugar Plum Fairy by the hand, and they dazzled everyone on the dance floor. Clara didn't want the magic to end, but already the performers were lining up, bowing, curtsying, and wishing her farewell. "Thank you so much," beamed Clara. "It was our pleasure," replied the Sugar Plum Fairy. Clara turned to the prince and gave him a hug. "I don't want to leave," she murmured, closing her eyes. But when she opened them again, she was back home, curled up under the Christmas tree. The prince was the simple Nutcracker cradled in her arms. "Was it all a dream?" she whispered to her Nutcracker, but he just looked back at her and smiled. What a magical story, everybody, and such beautiful music I could hear playing from the Nutcracker Ballet. So I really hope you enjoyed today's story, and maybe we'll get to learn some of the beautiful dances from the Nutcracker Ballet later in the Advent Calendar. Have a wonderful day and see you all soon. Bye everyone.